Hi, I'm Connor, and I'm one half of Hidden Rabbits. Lindsay's still out of town, so I'm back with another solo episode to give you some bite-sized history. And boy, do I have some crazy stuff this week. I'm from South Carolina, more specifically Myrtle Beach. And Myrtle Beach is a tourist town, which means that during the warm weather holidays like spring break and summer vacation, there's a ton of tourists in town. And during the winter holidays, things slow down a lot. This is pretty common in most tourist towns around the world, where there's peak season and there's not peak season and slow season. This slow season leads to locals having to figure out a way to pass the time and keep from going kind of crazy. And Myrtle Beach is no different. The locals created some pastimes in order to pass the time. Things like going to the mall and loitering, or going to Walmart and loitering. There's a lot of loitering involved in small towns. My favorite thing personally was always going for a drive. And driving is a really common thing, especially in small towns, because the big events always happen at cities that are 2 or 3 hours away from wherever you live. And Myrtle Beach is no exception. So I got kind of used to making long drives. Long drives can get kind of dull after a while, and you can only make so many playlists that keep your attention. So finding ways to spice up a drive can be kind of vital, which is why I was excited to find a website called makemydrivefun.com. The concept is pretty simple. You punch in 2 locations, and then it tells you all the landmarks or statues or activities that are in between those 2 locations. So I punched in a drive that I've done a lot, which is Myrtle Beach to Atlanta, Georgia. To my surprise, there's a good amount of stuff to do on that drive. Haunted grave sites and wacky signs for sandwich shops. But the thing that really caught my attention was actually in Florence, South Carolina. It was a marker for a crater that was caused when an American Air Force plane accidentally dropped a nuclear bomb. Here's the story. March 11th, 1958. A Boeing B-47 took off from Hunter Air Force Base in Savannah, Georgia. It was on its way to the United Kingdom to do some test flights. It doesn't really matter. The plane held multiple nuclear bombs on board because we were in the middle of the Cold War and we wanted to test some stuff out. It's important to note that nuclear bombs need kind of a special core, like a nuclear core or device that needs to be installed inside of it in order to make it a nuclear bomb. And these bombs on board didn't yet have this nuclear core installed, so they weren't technically armed nuclear bombs, just regular ones. Early on in the flight, one of the flight crew notices that a bomb isn't hooked up properly. So he goes over to try and secure it. But in doing so, accidentally causes the bomb to fall out of the plane, where it fell 15,000 feet and detonated on impact. Again, this wasn't a nuclear explosion, but the bomb itself still contained about 2 tons of high explosives. The bomb exploded in the backyard of a local train conductor named Walter Gregg. His house was completely destroyed, but miraculously, his whole family survived. They had some pretty severe injuries that needed to be treated, though, and all their chickens got killed. The explosion was big enough to create a crater that was 70 feet wide by 35 feet deep, which is pretty substantial. And this event was all over the news at the time. The New York Times reported that this was the first time that a nuclear device had exploded on American soil outside of a testing facility. The Gregg family ended up suing the United States Air Force, which, of course, and they ended up getting about $54,000 from the suit, which is about $600,000 in today money. On top of that, the family also received official letters of apology from all the crew on board the plane. So all's well that ends well, right? Except at the bottom of the page for this Wikipedia article, there's a link to another page. And that fun little page is titled List of Military Nuclear Accidents. And let me tell you, this page is way longer than you think it should be. Now, not every nuclear accident involves bombs. Those are a specific type of accident. I learned that those kinds of accidents are called broken arrows, which are defined as an unexpected event involving nuclear weapons that result in the accidental launching, firing, detonating, theft, or loss of the weapon. The fact that all those things have happened in nuclear devices is kind of mind-boggling. And since 1950, there have been 32 nuclear weapon accidents. On top of that, to date, there are 6 nuclear devices that have either been lost or stolen and never recovered, which that's kind of horrifying and sounds like it's something out of a Mission Impossible movie. Now, if you want to read more about broken arrow accidents, you can find a list of all the incidences over at theatomicarchive.com. I'll put a link down in the description. So yeah, my search for more fun stuff to do on a road trip ended in me having a new kind of fear unlocked in my life. Funny how that happens. Anyway, that's my little rabbit hole that I went down this past week. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And if you enjoy rabbit holes like this and others, we produce a podcast on this channel called I Promise This Is Interesting, where we go down the hidden rabbit holes of history that people might have forgotten over time. My name's Connor, and I'll see you next week.